Okay, boys and girls, so we are working on strategy number 1. Strategy number 1 is where we are using our bigger number. So we're going to use the bigger number to be the denominator, and we're going to make the smaller one become the same as the bigger number. So that will make sense all in a second. So my first step, if I'm following my steps, it's in purple. So my first step is to look at my denominators. And I want to decide which one is smaller and which one's bigger. I can see 4 is smaller, 8 is bigger. Now I'm going to do my next step. My next step is ask yourself, can I multiply the smaller denominator by a number to be the same number as the bigger denominator? So I ask myself, can I multiply 4 by something to equal 8, because I want to use this big denominator. So I want to keep this denominator the same. So 4 times what equals 8? Well, I know that that answer is 2. So I'm going to take 1/4 and I'm going to make it have the same denominator, which would be 8. But if I do it to my denominator, I have to do it to my numerator. So 1 times 2 is 2. So I have 2 eighths. This is my new equivalent fraction for 1/4. Now I check, are the denominators the same? I have 8 and 8, so I can use them to compare. So I keep my 2 eighths on this left side where the 1/4 was, and then I bring down the 3 eighths because it already had the 8 denominator, and I can look at the numerators now. 3 has a bigger numerator, so it is going to be the bigger fraction. So 1/4 is less than 3 eighths. Let's do another one. Okay, so with this strategy, I start with purple. I look at my denominator first. I decide which one's smaller, which one's bigger. 3 is smaller, 24 is bigger. And I ask myself, can the smaller denominator be multiplied to equal the same amount or be the same number as the bigger denominator? So I ask myself, 3 times what equals 24? Well, I can count by 3s, I can think about my math facts, and I can find out that I'd multiply it by 8. This fraction right here is already perfect. It already has the denominator of 24. I just need to change this 3 to be the same number as 24, which I found out would be 3 times 8. So I take 2/3, I multiply the denominator by 8, and that gives me 24. The only catch is if I do it to my denominator, I also have to do it to my numerator. So I do 2 times 8, and that's 16. I now have my equivalent fraction to 2/3. They equal the same exact thing. So that means I need to compare the fractions because now I can see I have 24 there, 24 there. So now I can compare so easily. So I put 16 24ths and then 14 24ths. I look at my numerators. I can see 16 is bigger. So 2/3 is greater than 14 24ths. Now do this next one step by step with me. So our first step is to look at our denominators. So I want you guys to write down this problem. If you need to pause the video, pause it. Okay, so the problem's written down. We're going to look at it. So circle your denominators, and you can do it in colors just like me if you'd like, or you can just do it with one color, it doesn't matter. The colors are just for you to differentiate which step we're on. So 7 is smaller, 21 is bigger. So now I ask myself, what would I multiply 7 by to get to 21? I'll give you guys a second to think about it. You should find, if you need to pause the video, you can. You should find that you would multiply 7 times 3. This fraction right here is already perfect because it has the denominator 21. I want to change this 7 so it becomes a 21 just like this one over here. So I want to change this to become 21. The way I do it is through multiplication and finding an equivalent fraction. So I do 5/7 and I multiply it by 3, and that gives me a denominator of 21. But if I do it to the denominator, I also have to multiply the numerator by 3. So 5 times 3 is 15. I now have my equivalent fraction that has the same denominator as the other fraction, so I can compare them. So I keep 15 21st on this side, and I have 10 21st on this side. Use your knowledge about when denominators have the same, or when the denominators are the same, how we compare. Yep, you're right. It would be 15 21st as the greater fraction. I want you guys to try this one all on your own. Take your time, pause the video. When you're ready, turn the video back on, and you will be able to find out how to do it. Okay, so I'm going to do my first step. My first step is in purple. I look at my denominators. I decide 8's smaller, 16's bigger. Then, my next step is to think, is there anything I can multiply 8 by to get to 16? And there is. I would multiply it by 2. This fraction is already perfect because it has the denominator of 16, so I don't have to do anything to it. But I do need to change 3/8 to get the denominator of 16, and I found I would do it by multiplying it by 2. But if I do it to the denominator, I have to do it to the numerator too. So 3 times 2 would give me 6. So now I have my new equivalent fraction that can replace 3/8. So I can now compare. I put 6/16 instead of 3/8 because that's an equivalent fraction to it. And then I put 12/16 on this side. And I look at my numerators, and I can see 12 is bigger. So 12/16 was bigger than 3/8. I hope this helped. If you still have questions, message me. Thanks, guys.